Hello and welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, a podcast all about board gaming and our board game group. I'm Adrian, your current first player, and I'm joined by the hardly working Davey.
Hello.
And the one that is hard work, JP.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm hardly working rather than hard work.
Yeah, at least I'm me.
Yeah, that's true. He's called me a lazy git, and then he's called
He's called me a bastard.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
At least we know all of our roles in this. The episode will be all about worker placement. We're going to talk all about one of our favourite mechanisms in games, and some of the games that do it well, and add a little bit of a twist.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, though, how are we all doing?
All good. How are you, Davey?
Yeah, not too bad. No complaints, really.
Good.
I've been
Hardly working.
hardly working. No, in fact, I've been board gaming less and probably doing more hard work by exercising. So
You have, haven't you? Yeah, you've been stepping up the game. He's actually invited me to a game of squash this Thursday, and which will be quite good because I haven't played for a while, so you know everything's going to ache on Friday. Maybe Saturday. It's always the day after the day.
The day after the day.
But I'm looking forward to playing squash again.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah.
I've been swimming twice a week since Expo.
That's good.
Yeah,
Nice.
so because I realised at Expo, I thought I'm so unfit.
Yeah.
And it didn't help. I ended up having to leave early. So
You did, didn't you?
Yeah, I just don't think it's so. I've been knuckling down with the healthy
Exercise.
lifestyle in exercise. So, but I have played some board games, which I'll talk about in a bit.
Sweet. Yeah, I got a very quick message that I need to do before I forget, because I will forget. And that's to you, Pete, who's giving basically a promo for Port Royale or Port Royal. Don't know which way around. I don't know the game. To Becky, and Becky says a massive, massive thank you. So really appreciate you kind of putting that together and sending it across. She loves it. How about you, Adrian? How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, not too bad at all. It's been very sunny out there. I'm very sunburnt because I was working on the fence because my dog escaped recently.
Oh, no.
So only into next door's garden, but
Okay.
didn't know he'd gone for a few seconds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've been...
That terror, isn't it, when the animal escapes? I'm the same when mine goes. I'm like, oh my God. And once he ran away and I didn't even notice for an hour and a half.
just came back.
Yeah, one of my neighbours came round and she goes, have you got a golden Labrador? I said, yeah. I said, oh, I think he's escaped. I went, no, he hasn't. I was like, Rusty. Oh, I think he has. Yeah, I didn't even know. I think I was setting up a board game. I think at the time, I just think one of the kids left the door open, which is a frequent thing in my house. But there we go.
Nice. So yes, I had to sort out the fence, and it was Saturday when it was blazing hot. And It took me 5-6 hours to chicken wire the fence. So now
You've got quite good balance.
The back of my good balance.
Yeah, for working on the fence.
Yeah.
You can see his soul in his body.
Yeah, I know. Adrian's son.
Right, should we just put the sting in here, shall we? And be done with it. So now we're going to talk about you and me and all the good things and the bad things that have been as we talk about Hex. So, JP, what games have you been playing recently?
As always, many games. I was going to talk about Radlands.
You've been playing a lot of that.
I have. It's slowly creeping up to be one of my most played games because Josh and I have been playing it every day and he loves it and he's very good at it. But I'm not actually going to talk about Radlands, even though I probably should, and maybe I'll do it on another episode.
Good game. I enjoy
it. Very good. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about Radlands. I'm actually going to talk about Voidfall. Ooh. So Voidfall, I got to play on the Gaming Rules.
Oh, nice.
About a couple of weeks ago, actually. And it's basically a Mindclash, like their latest kind of heavy big box game that's coming out. I think it's being delivered to backers in the next couple of months. But if anyone doesn't know what Voidfall is kind of a very Eurofied 4X game, and it's very much sci-fi, space theme. When you look at the kind of hexagons on the board, you think, oh, it's like Twilight Imperium or Eclipse, or insert any space hexagon kind of theme game in the middle of it. But it plays massively different. It's, you know, as I said, it's more a Euro game than it is a 4X game, which you would expect coming from kind of Mindclash anyway. But yeah, it's kind of like set in a universe where you all play different houses. There's this kind of threat called the Voidborn that's come and infiltrated the the galaxy, and they come and basically corrupted various parts of the sectors and also certain houses as well. And they've got this kind of orangey kind of look about them, where actually they've taken over some of the ships, and they'll put like void storms on the board, which are like basically walls that you can't travel through, and all other nonsense and things that's kind of going on. But the game kind of itself revolves around these focus cards that you have, and I think you have around 8, 9 in your hand, and they all have kind of different themes that you would expect in kind of 4X. You have ones that are very militaristic, allows you to move ships around, ones that are around production, getting your resources going, and others that allow you to kind of manipulate the corruption on your board and move it around, because that has negative impacts to kind of what you're doing. Some of them will help you advance civilization tracks on your board as well. And on your action, you're playing a focus card, and on these focus cards you have 3 actions on them, and you play 2 different actions, unless you've got trade tokens where you can you can pay the token to do the third action, so you can do all 3. And so yeah, you're kind of working out what cards you want to play, what your opponent's going to play, and yeah, kind of following those actions. And it's quite, I thought it'd be like really kind of difficult to learn, because being Mindclash, they're not light games, are they?
No.
But actually, we played the tutorial scenario, and it limits the number of cards you have in the first round to 3.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite nice, because it is limiting your decision space, and it's kind of teaching the game. So rather than going, typical Mindclash, what 30 actions do you want to do? I don't know. So now it's like, well, okay, you got 3 cards, you can do that, or that.
Yeah,
and it
nice.
it makes you can still have a bit of freedom, although the tutorial is a little bit on rails for the right reasons. But it means that you can kind of just get to grips with the mechanisms early in the game. But yeah, each kind of hex, each sector has kind of areas where you'll have dice kind of placed on them, and that kind of represents population. So the population is kind of relative to the guilds that are placed, and you've got different guilds that produce different resources in the game, like food and science and money. And basically it's the number of population times how many guilds there are of those types, which means how far your production will tick up. And so if you're increasing population in those sectors, you're increasing the yields out of your different resources there. And it's got quite a nice resource wheel kind of dial thing, where there's literally 5 dials kind of top to bottom all doing a different thing, and you kind of play around with it with all the resources. So it's quite
Is
contained.
that your own dials,
Yeah.
or is that, it's not like
Yeah,
a community pool or something?
No, you've got your own, but it's quite neatly done. So you're not like using loads of tokens, you're literally moving dials around, and they work really well.
So it sounds very different from a normal Mindclash game, because usually you can kind of tell it's a Mindclash game, whereas that sounds quite out there.
It's different, yeah. It doesn't play like anything else because of what it is, and it doesn't feel like Eclipse, and it doesn't definitely not feel like Twilight Imperium. It feels like its own thing, and even the combat is very deterministic. Not very, it is deterministic. You're not rolling dice and going, oh, I got the higher number and I win. It's, if you're going to win the fight right from the start, and you can get technology that can help you gain advantages in those fights, getting certain hits off before others. But the combat's very much, you've got approach damage that you'll do, or defense, depending on abilities and buffs, and then you go through this salvo phase where it just kind of loops round and round and round, where I'll do a hit, you do a hit, I'll do a hit, you do a hit, to the point where someone dies. So you might think, actually, that sounds a bit, if you know you're going to win, what's the point? But it's the threat of war.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that someone can come in, and that happened in our playthrough where Paul, he was armed to the teeth, he had torpedoes, this, that and the other, and he was in the hex next to me, and I was like, he could absolutely take this if he wants. And that influenced what I was doing. I was thinking, how do I shore this up? How do I build installations in that sector to put some more defence in place? That kind of thing.
Can it be quite detrimental to your board if you lose one of these battles? Is it quite swingy in that sense? Or
We didn't get into it too much because we played the tutorial, and the tutorial was there to have a taste of everything, shall we say. I'd imagine it's not super detrimental, and actually it's not always advantageous to go after the other players for victory points purposes. But
that's good.
Again, it just depend on what you're trying to do.
Because that's quite it's quite different to a Euro, isn't it? For the Euro 4 times, usually you do have the other avenues to go down. You always need that, don't you?
Yeah,
so
there's definitely other VP kind of routes. Like combat is one, where you're going to earn glory kind of points from having the combats, but it's not the only way. You can actually get a lot of victory points from going after agendas and actually not get into fights if you don't want to. And there are different scenarios in the books which will lean towards very combat heavy scenarios, and ones where you won't even
I was about to say, you
get involved with
there's
each
an
other.
Intro scenario, like it sounds like almost like campaign scenarios, not like linked campaign, but almost like these are totally different scenarios you're going to want to play through each one once.
What do you want to do? Do you want a very war-y? If certain groups like all of that, and because it's a Euro game through and through, some people might not like the fact that you can interfere with other people's engines and getting involved. So there are scenarios that cater for that. But if other groups that go bring it on, they want that threat of war. They want to want to get in each other's faces. It's all there. So
it allows for this building of scenarios. It probably means that you'll eventually get a lot of like homemade and maybe external ones as well, or ones that they've made internally.
I absolutely see people doing that because it's very modular in the way it works. But
nice.
it also plays co-op, so it's not just competitive. You can actually play against the game itself.
Cool. Interesting.
Which I can see working really well. And there's so many houses in the game. We played like the base 4, which are very similar, but all the other houses, I think there's another 12 or so. They are all asymmetric, different civilization tracks, different focus cards, or a few of the focus cards are different because they lean into the strengths.
What kind of weight would you say it is then? Where does it sit?
I'd say it's in the 4s, but low 4s.
Okay.
From what I've played, I think once I play a proper scenario and have everything at my disposal, that's where it's going to get like, oh my god, where do I go? What do I do? But you've got to start somewhere with these games, and I'd encourage anyone to just, even if you play heavy games, play the tutorial, because it just guides you. You'll know what you're doing, you'll have the game down, and then off you go. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it.
Davey?
So I, through a little bit of peer pressure, got Hamlet, and they arrived. Adrian bullied me until I bought it.
He's good at this, isn't he?
I know.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
Why aren't we playing this game? People in the group have got it. Why can't? Okay, well here's a cheap copy of it. Oh, I bought it. That's not. That's not peer pressure.
Yeah. Thanks, Adrian.
Basically, Adrian dictates what I buy and what I don't buy, because I'm
You're
not allowed to buy the Gallerist, and that's still not even a buy.
This is contentious, pointless,
airing beef.
But I'm glad he did, because we got that to the table at the weekend. That and finishing off Clank. So if you don't know what Hamlet is, basically the goal is in Hamlet is to finish building the church, and that's kind of the end game trigger. But what you do in it is you have tiles that you can place and build. And from these tiles, to get these resources, you have to make a chain. And it's very similar to a game, I think, that's called Roads and Boats.
Slaughter game, yeah.
But it's got a nice little twist, and a lot of these buildings have, which is similar to Carcassonne, like some of the VP scoring is like you have to have certain road length, or you have certain connectors that go in. And what's really nice about it is you're all using the resources that are on the board. So whatever's come down is something that you use, but you get rewards for making these resources. So there's always an incentive to actually make these resources. And you might be able to screw each other in some way or another. You've used these resources first, because you eventually can get quite big chains going off when you've got your villages. But that's kind of the part and parcel of it, and it's kind of then you've got to start working out. And we started off with a tutorial game. My friend's only started getting into board games, and he's actually going to come along to the 24-hour, which is good.
Nice.
But he's suddenly loving them, and he's going that step further with the complexity. So, and he got really into it, and he won in the end. He played an amazing game, and he had this like little section built out here, which none of us could really get to our chain to, and he had just had this like VP generator going on. It was just absolutely insane. But once we got used to it, I probably would have stopped him doing that. But it's one of those you're kind of trying to play your own game, whereas this is a game where you really need to be focusing on everyone else's. Yeah. So I think it's actually really going to grow and grow the more that we play it. And the fact that I've enjoyed it the first time is a good indicator, because it was easy to teach.
Yeah.
You've got like So on your turn, you have to move your donkeys, and you can move your donkey one space out, one tile out from the centre, and that's where the church is. Everything is built
like
for
a
the
hub,
church
isn't
to
it?
start. Yeah. And then your workers, they can either activate a building, build a building, and that's it. And the buildings just have different effects, but it's clearly indicated on the tiles, and off you go. It's really that simple to teach, but there's a lot of added depth there, which is really nice. And I'm looking forward to the expansion, because we did. One thing I did notice is you do end up with these like gaps that you can't build anything in, which is where this expansion is going to come in with lakes, which David was talking to us about, where you can put these lakes in, and then you can then transport over. But only you can transport over if you put the boat in. So it adds in this another little layer, which is going to be really nice to this transport train, economy train. So as in obviously choo-choo carting upwards and downwards on your donkeys. Not choo-choo.
I was joking. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've been excited. It looks amazing on the table as well. The only criticism, which is the same thing everyone has, is the tiles are a little bit too small.
Yeah, the icons on the tiles are quite small, aren't they?
You end up with lots of bits on there, and you're like, what's that doing? What's that doing again?
When we walked past the expo, I was quite surprised, because up until that point, I hadn't seen a copy of it like in the wild.
No.
So we walked past the demo table, and I was like, oh, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Not tiny, but
no, it's smaller.
It's
but I'm
smaller
guessing
than
they've
I was
done that.
Could be a bit bigger, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how big these things spread out, because we didn't
Yeah.
see a full game of it.
It did end up taking quite a bit of the table if you end up building one.
Oh, really?
direction.
Okay.
You imagine upping anything like by 20 or 30% to make all those icons and that fit better, or words or whatever, that would suddenly start to take up a lot more of the table.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
it did sort of, first time I walked past it, I was like, those are tiny pieces.
Yeah. And cost, and because of all the little wooden meeples are really cool. You've got the little donkeys, you've got the little bridges that make the roads. Yeah. And I'm guessing they're trying to keep the cost down as well, making those tiles just that a little bit more. Probably would have added quite a lot. Because I mean, that's a good deal. I think it was about £35. So it's a good price.
It's a good price
really.
for a game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the components are really nice.
Good
Have
job,
a nice little insert
good job someone
already.
pointed that out for you, that deal, isn't it?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, usually 42 apparently, but I don't know when it was 42. Who knows? But yeah, definitely recommend it. Good game.
Yeah, looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, the easy intro reminded me of Viticulture World we played recently, where it was like, that felt like it was always giving you too much in that first scenario to get there. But it's like, I reckon the next scenario will be a lot more vicious.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. That was amazing.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a really good
Enjoyed
game, actually.
But that's not what I'm going to talk about.
No?
Well, you guys have talked about lots of hotness.
Okay.
So, like, JP spoke about pre-hotness.
It's the hotness before it's even come out, guys.
Mine's post-hotness.
Hamlet is
Post-hotness,
like right on the, so I'm going to talk about something equally hot and modern, and Paladins of the West Kingdom.
Yeah. That's new, isn't it? It's a new one. Yeah. Isn't that like?
I didn't want to play that, but that was quite a while ago.
Is that like Shane Phillips's 5 games ago game?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's had 5 games ago. Well, we had Viscounts, Wayfarers, we had the Legacy of You as solo, and he bought out the Raiders, I think, since then.
Yeah.
Which was just rebranding of Raiders of the North Sea.
You get owned, it was 4, not 5.
So
I shall leave this podcast immediately.
But yes, it is quite a while ago now. But it's sat on my shelf of shame for a little while. I really enjoy Architects of the West Kingdom, and Raiders of the North Sea is fantastic. So I bought Paladins knowing that I wanted to play it. Just sat there for nearly a year. It sat on the shelf. But it's a little bit... I went into it knowing that there was a bit more weight to it. It wasn't quite as simple as Architects or Raiders. And it was more of a sort of a 2 or 3 player game rather than a 4 or 5 player game, which the other ones are like. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. Setup and sort of design. You've got 3... I'm going to forget what they are. There's 3 types of like honour or virtue or whatever. There's like military strength, something to do with the church, and something to do with something else. So it's like blue, red and black. And nearly every spot you go to, on the left-hand side of what they've named the spot, it gives you a colour. And on the right-hand, it gives you a colour. And what it's basically saying is it requires a cost of this. So if the red is on the left-hand side, it requires you to have decent red, but it's going to give you black out of it. And because all the spots are fairly well labelled, you kind of can chain it, and you can't just focus on one thing, you have to focus on everything. And there's just a lot of options on the board, but because it's mostly controlled by these 6 options, and only a couple will you really have the option to do at any one time, it means you've got to plan a little bit further ahead, but it also means you've kind of got a limited pool of options amongst all the options available to your board. It was really good. One of the key things that helps you decide that strategy is each turn you look at 3, you take the top 3 paladins off the deck and you take a look at them, and each of them gives you bonus strength to 1 or 2 colours, gives you a handful of meeples, and they're all different colours, and so certain spots require certain colours only, and it will give you like one-off abilities, like doing this is cheaper, or you get something for free or something like that. And what you do is you take one of those paladins and you put it in for play, face down until everyone's picked. You put one on the bottom, i.e. I don't want that again, and you put one back on the top, so I'm going to see it next turn. So it allows you to sort of load your deck a little bit. And again, first game, so I don't know, but one of the first hands I had, because of some of the stuff that was out there, I was like, oh, I'm going to go after this strategy, but I don't want to do it now because it makes stuff cheaper and I can't afford it yet. So I kept just putting it back on top of the deck. There's like, I want to say there's 8 turns to the game, there might be 7, somewhere around that. And I think it was like turn 5, 6 before I actually used that paladin. I just kept sticking back on top of the deck every time because I was
not ready.
I was working towards it, and I was like, right, okay, I could play it this turn, but I think if I can play it next turn, it'll be worth 2 gold more to me. I'll save 2 gold more or whatever, and just kept going and going and going. And yeah, it's that heavier weight. It's got Shem Phillips and Garfield Games printed all over it. You can tell exactly what it's like. The first 3 turns you turn over goals, like public aims and goals, and then the rest of them become extra worker placement spots that are randomised. So there's only a little pool of them. They all do roughly sort of quite similar-ish things, and they're slightly better versions for the most part of what you've already got on your board, but only one person can go there. Standard worker placement stuff. And so it kind of grows a little bit, and you get points for attacking people or converting people or building things, or the amount of like military strength goes up, or building walls, or it's that usual point salad thing that Garfield Games does quite a bit as well, of everything's worth a little bit of points, and you could do with specialising a little bit but not too much, which is what I found is pretty standard of most Garfield games, is you have to have a little bit of everything ideally, but you can go after a couple more things and then that really gives you the extra points. So it felt very familiar, but definitely that next level up of having to think and plan, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Can't say much more than that. So no, it's not the new hotness, so it doesn't feel like there's too much point in going.
It's your new hotness.
It's my new hotness. So I was really glad to get it off the shelf of shame now that my shelf of shame has grown. And on to our main segment, where we are going to talk all about worker placement games. So a worker placement game will give you normally several workers, and you normally take an action or you gain a benefit by placing a worker on that space. There are then 2 types of worker placement. The main type is that spot is now blocked. You can't go there, or it'll cost, or like there's another space with it that might cost you more. Some worker placement games then increase the cost. You might have to put twice as many workers or plus 1 worker to then go to that spot, or as I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, you might have like a Grande worker or like a big worker that you can place that ignores the rules of the worker placement, and you still gain that benefit. And that is ultimately what the very basis of a worker placement game is that you're placing something on a spot, you're gaining a benefit or reserving a card or something along those lines, and blocking it or making it harder for someone else to go to that spot. So what is it that we like about worker placement games?
I think for me, I mean, they're probably one of my favourite kind of mechanics in board games. It's hard to explain why that is, but I think there's an immediate cause and effect with worker placement.
Yeah.
Like as you said, you've got a meeple, you've got a worker, you put it on the board, you get stuff, and it's simple to kind of process in your brain. Like if I wanted to get clay, I know where to go to get clay, because it's very obvious on the board where I need to put things to do it. And yeah, it's the simplicity of it. But as you say, what's been really great to see in kind of board games, how they've evolved over the years, because it's quite an old mechanic in games, right? It's been around for donkey's years. Who? Hamlet.
No,
Yeah.
Worker placement.
Well, okay. But there's donkeys in it.
There is donkeys, yeah.
It's fine.
It's
fine.
Worker donkeys.
Yeah, yes.
Worker donkeys.
Yeah.
But no, but what's good is how they twisted it. How they've taken the age old, put the worker out and get stuff. It's how they evolved it and made it really, really interesting. But yeah, it's hard to say why I like it. I just do. I just think it's a really good
I have a theory anyway.
Oh, go on then. Share.
Yeah, so with Euro games, to create a kind of tension between players and create a kind of conflict is really hard. Because if you do it in a war-y sense, you start messing with people's engines, people don't like that. But what worker placements do is they do it in a way that's non-confrontational. Yeah. You take a spot, someone else can't use that spot, but there's other spots to do. So you then have to evolve your engine. You have to work out the puzzle, and that's why I think, in its nature, people keep coming back to it. Is the fact that it's contention and there's actually player interaction in a Euro, but without any animosity. Yeah. And that's why, in my eyes anyway, why I think I really enjoy worker placement. And they have started to spin it on its head with some recent games, and there's definitely like a flavour of the month, isn't it? Or a couple of years, there's been a lot of really tight worker placement games coming out.
Certainly with a twist. I think worker placement's been around for a little while. And they've done some early twists on it as well. We'll get into that later on, I think. But they've done some early twists on it. But really now they're kind of revisiting those sort of different ways of implementing worker placement. I think you're totally right, Davey. I think it's confrontation without me pointing at someone and going, you. It's you that I am deliberately going after.
It's indirect confrontation, isn't it?
Because you're blocking a spot, and that spot didn't necessarily belong to someone. Yes, you might have known that person wanted that spot, but you're not saying you wouldn't normally say our group might occasionally go, I'm going here just to stop you getting in. For the most part, if people want to play it that way, they can put something on a spot and just let it sort of lie, and it's not saying this is to stop you or anything, just I'm doing my thing, I'm blocking this spot here. And it means that you can have a strategy, but you have to, as you say, evolve your strategy and turn it tactical if some spots get blocked or if something goes off the table from a worker placement point of view. So I think you're spot on. That was my thoughts of worker placement. It is conflict, and there is sort of that feeling of they've blocked me. I need to think of something else, or that's going to take me now 2 more workers to get what I wanted out of it rather than 1 more worker. It's all of that kind of you rapscallion, you or something,
which is a nice amount of player interaction for a Euro for most people. Some people don't like it when it's too much barrage, and some people don't like it when it's too little. Where you're just sitting down and you're pretty much playing solitaire, each one of you. But so it just has a nice little medium of kind of the two ends, I think.
I mean, come on.
For most, anyway.
Who hasn't enjoyed putting a worker down on a spot and everyone else swears?
It's really satisfying.
It's the right thing to do. It feels good. You're like, yes. That is exactly what we needed to do, because usually that's causes fun and games. But that's why it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it is just the right amount of contention, I think, for a lot of people anyway.
So very, very quickly before we go into it, is there anything we don't like about worker placements that comes round occasionally?
Sometimes it can create a lot of AP because of it when you can't plan too much, especially if you just had to go and there's 3 other people having a go. And say it's tighter towards the end. Usually at the start it's a bit more free flowing, especially if you know the game. But towards those end rounds,
that last round especially,
where there's maybe 4 spaces. And one of them goes, and now it was the one you needed, and the last 3 have a lot more different options, but not the ones you wanted. You can kind of sit there sometimes and go, start scratching your face and think for a while. So I think that's the only real downside. Sometimes they can be a bit too simple, but then that's in the game itself. That's
what you choose of weight-wise, isn't it?
It's more around because I was thinking that, like, the worker placement games that I don't enjoy, it's not the mechanic that I don't enjoy.
No,
it's
not.
The way the kind of fringes of the game interact with that mechanic. To be honest. So it's like, certain ones I'm like, I really dig that. It's really fun. That's because all the other stuff going on that it enables. Whereas other games, I won't name them, but there's other games that I just find.
I might in a second.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the things that I found that a lot of designers have been very careful with now in worker placement games is rubber banding or a catch up, so that someone doesn't go too far ahead. The early days of the worker placements that I played didn't have a lot of natural rubber banding, and I'll call it out because a worker placement game that is very popular, that a lot of people like, and that I liked for a long time, has one thing in it that has made me not want to play it, which is Lords of Waterdeep and the
mandatory
quests.
Yeah,
and
I understand that.
That felt like one of the first real attempts to try and rubber band and create a catch-up mechanic that is now, for me, long dated, because you can be ahead 50 points and just 2 or 3 of them chucked on you.
It kind of negates that whole conflict thing we were talking about in one fell swoop. It then screws people's engines with one card,
which isn't fun.
Which isn't
fun, and it creates a weird position where I played a lot of Lords of Waterdeep when I first started, and I've been like quite a lot ahead. And you think to yourself, this game does need some rubber banding of some description. Most games do. That aren't particularly like 4.5 complexity, cutthroat, all that kind of stuff. Most of these kind of what are considered entry level or next step up games need some kind of rubber banding, and it's just all it takes is someone to. I've had 3 or 4 thrown on me in the last 2 turns, and you're like, that's it. I've gone from being miles ahead to last place by a long shot. And I think there are other games out there. I've heard Caelus. The remake of Caelus had a bit of work done to it because Caelus was very cutthroat and there was no rubber banding to that and stuff like that. So it's something that I've experienced and something I've heard a fair chunk about with some of those early worker placement games that I think designers have had to be very mindful of these days. So should we talk about some games that have worker placement in it that we enjoy and what they do to twist or do differently to other games maybe?
Yeah. Kind of the 2 flavours from last year, which were big, were Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium. And both of those put a little twist in. And it's a very similar twist, so I can't lump them in together, even though people always say they're really similar games, but I think they're different enough to.
They don't feel similar.
No, they don't.
But they have similar.
a similar mechanic with the worker placement, which is your card. So the deck that you're building is what dictates where you go or where you put your worker, which was kind of the twist of it. So they're in essence deck builders. You're buying cards from a shop and making your deck better and trying to get combos and do this. But you also have to have the added caveat, and to do a lot of this stuff, you need to have the right symbol or the right, in Lost Ruins of Arnak, plane, car, foot, the right type of travel to go to that space that you want to go to and do the action that you want to do. So it put a nice little twist in it because, there's been deck builders, there's been worker placement, but no one thought, we'll put the 2 together until...
Certainly not successfully. Until those 2 came out, they were definitely the 2.
And then it was weird, though, within such a... It works
really well. Just that you think it'd be all quite restrictive, and it is kind of restrictive in the way that it works, because obviously depending on your hand of cards will depend on what spaces you can go. But I really like that.
Yeah,
I really like the fact that from
it's multi-layered.
But from an AP point of view, you can't look at every spot on the board because you can't go to 50% of them, maybe even less, depends
how you built your deck.
Depends how good at deck building you are.
Screwing myself before and I've been like, this card works with this card,
I've got no yellows.
They're all yellows. I was just like, I can't go anywhere else now. I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
It felt like Dune had a bit more of the deck building side of it in there than Lost Ruins did. Lost Ruins stuck more to the worker placement sort of side of things and going up that temple track on the right, whatever it was called. But
cool.
I agree.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my
little
twist of worker placements.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to kind of pick a game that has variable workers and also
variable placement.
And those variable workers can go in other things that allow you to go to spaces. So I'm talking about Anachrony.
Okay.
So you've got different kind of workers that you've got scientists, engineers, administrators, geniuses, and most of them can go anywhere. But the kind of big caveat here is on the main board, it's kind of like it's unbreathable, so you need to go in these exosuits to be able to go out into the world and use those spaces. So the whole thing, you've kind of got this management of workers, which are exosuits that you've got to power up and has resources on its own right. And then you've got to control those exosuits by putting workers in, literally slotting them in if you've got the minis, and then putting them onto the board. So early game, you've got you're forever powering up more exosuits because you're going to need the base resources. You need to get your engines going to build the buildings and things like that. And then as the game progresses, you'll power less of those exosuits because a lot of the engine you built on your main board, which is off the your player board, off the main board, will do a lot of what you need. And what I quite like in that game, what is again quite unique, is the fact that the workers come back like asleep, tired, and you have to wake them up. You have to motivate them so that you can use them. So there's a whole life cycle of you're getting workers, you're using them, you're putting them in exosuits, you're getting stuff. They come back tired. You got to again motivate them, or you can motivate them in a good way or not in a good way. So you can motivate them in a good way, which will help you get VPs, or you can literally
morale,
just
whip them into
submission, which
won't cost you anything.
It won't cost you anything, but it's going to punish you in VPs later down the line. So you have to kind of balance that as well. So yeah, I quite like the fact that there's the variety of workers, that certain workers can do certain things, or certain workers will get rewards for going to certain places. So the example is like engineer can go and construct buildings with discounts. But you can still go with anyone else, that's fine, but you won't get a discount. So it's trying to balance your workforce and get them to places,
As your engine builds, you then have more spots on your own board, potentially, depending on how you built it, which you then put your workers into instead. So
without the need of the
it closes down the main board, but opens up more on your own engine.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely a unique game worker placement, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of layered.
It is very.
There's definitely layered worker
Mindclash
placement.
game.
Yeah, it's not just simple go to this spot, get the thing. It's like, well, got to power this thing up to then get a worker to put it in.
Especially when you start putting the expansions in, I'm going to then bounce back through time and do this and do this.
I love it.
Yeah, it is.
Bring it on.
What about yourself, Adrian? What worker placements do you like with a twist?
One of the ones that I thought was one of the earlier ones that I played, which I haven't seen really anyone attempt it since, and I feel like it's something that isn't quite got right in the game. It's very good, but it isn't quite got right in the game, but it would be right, I think, if someone took a shot at it now. So the game is Pillars of the Earth, and it on the board it's a standard kind of worker placement game. Go here, get this number of resources, or you can go there and buy these cards, or go to the market, and allows you to do that. And so it's a very simple worker placement game. But before all of that happens, your workers get placed into a bag and they get drawn out. And so let's say mine gets drawn out first. It's Adrian, do you want to pay 8 gold to go first? Yes or no? All right, okay. No. Go to the back of the line. Next one comes out to JP's. JP, would you like to pay 7 to go first now? Yes, no. Yes, okay, that goes down. Draw the next one out. Right, JP, your next one's come out. Would you like to pay 6 to go next? Or do you want to go to the back of the queue? Oh, I'll go to the back of the queue this one. And so
you've just got a variable order that's going to come out.
Yeah, that it comes out in. And it is a bit of the luck of the draw of the bag. And I do find that having a couple come up early can be really bad, because do you want to pay the 8 and then the 7 for your 2 when money that's like 2 rounds worth of money.
Yeah.
So I better go to the back of the queue essentially. So that is a bit awkward, but for the most part it works. There's a few times where if just a couple of things, like if someone's 2 workers comes out very last or very first, it can feel a bit weird, but for the most part it works really well, and you're paying for that ability to either go first or later on down the line. So yeah, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed. It was one of the in fact, I think it was my first worker placement game that I played. Enjoyed it. Thought it was great fun. And I just haven't seen that tried again.
No.
And I think there is some reasons, because you
can bidding for placement, isn't it?
Because you can get that little bit of awkwardness. But I feel like designers these days are quite clever, and I'm sure if they wanted to, they could figure out a way to do a similar thing without it feeling broken, because someone's sort of meeples come out twice, like in
a
quick
secret
succession.
auction. That'd be quite cool.
So, but yeah, it's based on the books, I've never read the books,
No,
so not a clue on that one. But first people I played it with had read the books and like bought it because they read the books. But yeah, it's just a very nice, simple mid-weight Euro worker placement in everything but that. And that was one of those first ones where I then actually went from that to what I'd just call standard worker placement, where you don't really see much of a twist on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this was different.
Yeah.
It's actually I've played something with a twist on it first.
Tried to do something new. Yeah.
And then moved on to something a bit more generic, I suppose, in that sense. But no, really good game. It hasn't quite stood the test of time, but it is still really good.
Yeah.
It's not like some games where sort of 15 years later they're not worth putting back on the table anymore. It is still worth absolutely giving it a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, Architects. That's a different little twist. It's more about kind of timings of when to put your workers in and how many you put in. Do you risk putting that many in? Otherwise someone might capture your workers. Then if they've captured them, you've then got to get them back, and it's wasting an action doing that. And it's got a real nice push-pull for worker placement, which is very different.
Yeah, because you're still only putting one down at a time. So you start off with a pool of like 2 or 3, and you gain them, don't you? As the game goes on. Here's your pool of
it's 20,
20 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you're going to slowly lose them over the game.
Yeah.
Like you'll get them back, but you'll never have probably as many as you started with.
Yeah,
because they're tied up everywhere else.
They're tied up everywhere else
in prison.
But then obviously putting more of them down as it goes through, like you get better rewards. But then someone's going to see that you've got probably only 3.
Five at the lumber mill, and they're like rounding them up.
Like rounding those up, I'm sending those to jail.
Yeah.
And
Loiterers.
by doing that, they get a load of money. So it's kind of you've got to weigh up your risk or your options and being like, is it worth doing that to lose them to then have to waste an action to go get them later? And you think, yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm going to get loads back from it, so I'll put them in. It's definitely not a game I've not seen anything like it before. I know you were saying there's probably a similar one to it, or
no, I don't think I've seen anything quite like that where you get such a large number of workers.
Yeah, it definitely is worth a play. I thoroughly enjoy every game I've played of it.
I've seen like where you have to have an action to pull stuff back.
Yeah,
you know, where the board fills up and then you have to eventually do an action
so
that pulls
then
all your
that
workers back.
Usually frees up a load of spaces.
Either frees up a load of spaces or just it's cost you to get them all back. You know, it takes you a turn, whereas you could have been smarter and done things that get them back as they go.
Yeah.
Now I've had to spend an entire turn getting them all back, which kind of happens in Architects, right? But nothing where it's like, here's your 20 workers, slowly lose them over the length of the game.
The only thing I don't like. I do really like it, but I also think I would like to see a game done like Architects, just in a different way, because it's then got this whole light and dark thing, isn't it, with building with the church and then going to the black market as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much standard in Shem's games.
Yeah,
like
I like it in that game, but I wouldn't mind seeing that work and placement mechanic used in a different game in a different way and seeing how it works.
Yeah, I certainly think it could be redone somehow if you wanted to, but I really enjoy that one.
It is good.
Another one that kind of springs to my mind, it's an older worker placement mechanic, but they're actually using it in some of the newer games that are coming out, and I don't know what the official name for it is, but I'm going to call it like snake worker placement. So Istanbul.
Snaker placement.
So,
okay.
So Istanbul is the first game I know that does it, and what I'm talking about is you'll initially place your worker down wherever you like, but your next one has to be adjacent to the one you've placed previously, creating a snake chain. So it becomes this where you go and where you can go next, and after that it becomes more restrictive as you put more workers down, and obviously you can kind of pull them back.
To plan ahead.
And does it stop other people going from there, or does it cost them more to put their stuff
I can't remember, is the honest answer. I don't know if it's stopped. There are certain spaces where it does, I think. But anyway, we'll talk about the mechanics in general, right? Because I can't remember Istanbul, even though I did play it about a year ago-ish. But another game that implemented it, and it's now being reimagined and evolved on, is Andromeda's Edge, which is the new and improved Dwellings of Eldervale, which has got a sci-fi reskin, and it's not just a reskin, it's actually been heavily retuned and redone. But that uses a similar mechanic of, you're putting your ships down on sectors, and your next ones will have to go next to that, and then you kind of pull them all back and obviously redeploy. But in that game, the pulling back of your workers or your ships is actually a fundamental part of.
You get stuff while doing
you're
it.
You're going to get a lot of stuff.
An engine starts
absolutely comboing, and in Andromeda's Edge especially, which is what they've leaned into more, and it's probably my complaint of Dwellings, to be honest, is that pulling back action just combos all your engine off. Like you put in these little tiles, these little modules on your board, like essentially taking all your ships, returning home, and you're activating chains of things and go, right, I'm going to do this and then do that and do it, and therefore, this looks quite good. So yeah, just that whole kind of
I didn't mind Dwellings. It was just a bit. Well, that was it. It's just okay, wasn't it? Yeah, it was just an okay game.
I didn't like the theme of Dwellings at all, and I don't
mind the theme. I don't mind if it's like Colossus or
Yeah, I don't mind fantasy stuff, but I don't know if there's something about that. It didn't grab me. I thought the tracks.
It's got a real cult following as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, but this new one, which I have backed actually, and it surprised me because I thought maybe it's just like Dwellings.
How many have you backed now?
Too many. I can't even blame lockdown anymore because that's gone, isn't it?
You keep talking about games again. Yeah, back that.
Yeah,
back that.
Like, ones he's never mentioned before either. I've backed that now.
Surprise! Surprise! But yeah, I thought I'd give it a go, and it looks cool.
Sounds good.
And it's sci-fi, and that's like my.
I don't mind you backing games. Really, it means I get to play them.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, yeah, that snaky worker placement-y.
Cool.
It's interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
So should we talk about big workers then?
Big workers.
Big
boys.
Yeah, that's the one. So
Grande Trujillo.
I think the one that everyone's going to think about is the one I'm going to talk about, which is Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. When they hear Grande Worker, that's definitely the first game they all think of, right?
Yeah.
Is that the dinosaur winemaking game?
Yeah,
I thought it was.
So Viticulture or Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, they basically do the same thing, which is that you can place a worker down somewhere, and if a spot gets filled up, instead you can place a Grande Worker, a big worker in there, and you get to do that space's actions. Now, in Tiny Epic, it counts as 2 workers, because the point is you need to put 2 workers down, but the Grande counts as 2 workers, whereas in Viticulture, it just kind of says you just don't need to sit on a spot, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But that is what it's doing, is it's that, we talked about it before, here's your blocked spot that it's absolutely blocking off. It's not, it's now costing you more, because that Grande worker's like that specialised, that extra sort of, you don't want to just waste him on doing anything, you want to wait until someone's blocked a spot you want to go to, and then you're going to put that Grande worker down. And both of those do an excellent job of making sure that in the cycle that you're playing, so in Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, what your sort of few actions are improving your dinosaur pens and sort of creating like little, pretty much like Agricola, and like putting your little pens down to put your animals in, except for your animals are dinosaurs. You've got catching dinosaurs, which if you accidentally catch one with an egg, you get 2 dinosaurs instead, and if 2 dinosaurs are together they breed, and if they breed too big for the pen, they either eat other dinosaurs when they escape or they knock down part of your park. And you're getting food as well, and so because it's and you need food to feed your dinosaurs, otherwise they rampage as well. So it's kind of this interlocking it's that interlocking thing of you need to feed them, you need to get them, you need to not get too many of them or control them if they start and pair up.
If it was on a farm, it sounds like an Uwe game.
But it has got that little bit of that sort of Uwe sort of pens and putting two together. I don't know. That's what I've always heard it as. So that's what I'm going with.
I go with Uwe.
I think it is
outvoted.
So,
no, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
I'm agreeing.
So yeah, it does have that oeuvre of Uwe. But yeah, so it's got that thing, but because you're also trying to feed them and just stop them rampaging, because it does damage and you'll end up on loads of minus points, you need that Grande worker or some kind of get out, because if someone blocks the wrong one, that's it, you're done. Now, if someone blocks a couple, then that's a mistake you've made, but there's definitely always in most rounds one that you absolutely have to get to, and keeping back that Grande worker. And I don't know if it's in Viticulture. I'm pretty sure it's in Tiny Epic. It might be in a different game. I think it's in Tiny Epic, where if you've already put one of your workers there, you can't put the Grande worker there as well. So you can't kind of get double bubble of putting your own worker and then putting your Grande on top.
I'm going to throw one in there then. Dice worker placement.
Yes.
So that was a nice little spin when that one came out. Bitoku. That was one from last year. That was a good little dice placement. No actual rolling, but it kind of indicated the very similar to Teotihuacan in the fact that it's more to do with like the level of your workers that were going up, the power of them, and then they had like a very similar thing with an ascension thing where they would kind of ascend and they go up, and then you get more actions from going up and above. Whereas there's other ones where you obviously roll them, and then it's the indicated value. Usually a lot of the midweight Euros we play, like I'm so bad with names.
Lorenzo.
I played it loads as well. I've played it loads.
Coimbra.
Just can't remember it. But yeah, it's really good. It's a really cool little mechanic because these games usually give you a lot of options, but then the way that they reduce these options isn't actually through is limiting it through your dice instead, or what you roll and your level, and that's how they balance it instead.
Yeah.
So it adds another little puzzle on top of
the actual blocking placement.
Yeah.
That's variability without changing the board state,
Yeah,
because the dice pool is going to give you the variability. I mean, Perseverance is the same, because obviously you're rolling a load of symbols, right?
Yeah.
And then those symbols can only go in certain spots or have restrictions for those spots. But with Perseverance, especially episode 1, depending on what space you go, we'll also see specific dinosaurs in, and so that adds another layer in. Not only what dice do you want to pick and where do you want to put it, but even in the action space, what space within the action do you want to put it? Again, Mindclash, well done. Three layers of decisions just to put a dice on the board. That's why I like it.
Yeah. Definitely got a nice depth there.
Yeah.
Cool. I just like the puzzle of Teotihuacan.
Yeah.
Every time I play that, I think it's such a good game.
It is. We played it not so long back, right?
No.
And it's been a long time since we
got 2 games of it in, because you got it to the table and thought, actually, I really enjoy this. You got another game in really quickly.
It's a very good game.
It is.
It is, solid. Needs to be played more.
Yeah.
Have you got the deluxe version on its way?
I haven't.
Letting the side down.
No, but I have I've got all the expansions. And I've got an insert.
Of course
It all
you've got
fits
the
in the base
expansion.
box.
Nice.
So now I'm like, I don't need that, and I've actually taught myself I don't need the deluxe version. It looks nice. I don't need it.
Did they actually add anything to it then? Or no?
Nice artwork and
Just
meeples.
Nice. Okay.
You know, it's a deluxe.
Yeah.
It's the deluxeification, as you would expect.
Yeah.
Just coming from you. Just the
I know.
nicer stuff, the nicer components. That's all it adds. No one cares about that stuff.
It shows I've grown up a little bit sometimes.
Or you've got so many Kickstarters on the way, you've had to limit yourself in some kind of way or another. Otherwise, this house would just be board games.
Yeah. Shut your filthy mouth.
We would be sitting in there just on. Oh, this isn't a chair. This is a stack of board games.
Yeah. My board game chairs around the table. What game do you want to play? I don't know. I'm sat in one.
Yeah. What other twists do you have?
The twist, I'm going to talk about a game that I haven't played yet, but we've got coming on Friday, which is Aura Labora.
Labora?
Which is a Uwe Rosenberg game, an old one from 2011.
You're on a bit of an Uwe hype at the moment.
I'm in. Ever since you did that episode, and then discovered there's still another 7-8 games that we haven't even played in the group. And I'm like, oh, what are these all about?
Yeah.
Great. This is the one I'm really excited about, and the reason why I bring it up for this episode is that you traditionally have your 3 workers. You're building a tableau of buildings on your board that you can extend by buying landscapes and things like that. And you can issue work contracts to other players. You can pay them a coin and then use their workers on their board to get the stuff that you need. And in the game, this might sound like a negative thing. There's no variability in the buildings that come out. They're always the same. They come out in phases in the game. But who buys what and which buildings go to which players, and the way that they're split up and broken down is what's going to vary the interactions. And I've not seen that before. This is probably in lots of games, but the fact that you can pay other players to use their workers, which I thought was interesting, rather than I'm going to use my worker on your board to block your space, I'm actually using your worker on your board to maybe block.
So actually they don't get to use that worker
until so the kind of mechanic is if anyone ever has their 3 workers on the board, regardless of whose turn it is, they all come off. So it's like you're cycling the workers on and then they all come off. But yeah, if I put your first worker of 3 down onto that board, he's stuck there until you play your other 2.
So you might got a bonus out of a building that I want with my own worker.
Yeah.
And interesting.
Yeah,
that is
different.
Interesting.
It's different, contentious.
Yeah, very contentious.
Because you're not blocking a communal board, you're blocking somebody's private board, but then they can do it to you, and it's not like it's so restrictive. Like I've blocked a building that's going to produce bread, for example. There'll be other ways of doing it because it's at its heart, it's a resource conversion game that you're converting the crap resources to high quality resources that are worth VPs at the end, and it's just the root of how you take all of that.
Like the wheat, and we make the flour, and we make the bread.
It's very
Standard,
much like that, It's but done in a very different way to your farming, agricolas, your caverners, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'd just not seen that before. Thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it does sound
we'll see how mean it is or how not mean it is. I don't know.
Always love an Uwe.
Yeah, because at least you're getting something, and money in that game is. And I've played it solo once, but I know money's tight, like it is in most games.
That man loves worker placement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the originators, not but
exactly.
Took the mechanic and ran home with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I thought I'd mention that one. That was a twist that I've not seen.
Nice.
Yeah.
For my one, so I think you've mentioned Perseverance, which is the dice placement, which isn't. But I think otherwise, all the work placements we talked about, everyone has their own coloured workers.
Yeah.
Out of the ones we've spoken about so far, I think.
As in your player colours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So Raiders of the North Sea is, as I say, my favourite Garfield game, I think, at the moment, and of the ones I've played. And with that, you have a black worker, a grey worker, and a white worker. And the black workers tend to be lower powered on certain spaces but higher powered on the others. The greys tend to sort of do a sort of a mixture of the black and the white, but to a mid power. And the white workers tend to go only to the spots that unlock later, basically, but quite often they're lower powered on the earlier spots. And the twist that comes on top of that is that everyone puts down a worker and then picks a worker up and gets the bonuses of both. So I might put down a worker somewhere, gain the provisions or whatever, and then if someone else has on a previous turn put down a worker, I don't know, on where you get the gold from, I can pick up that worker, so now I've got whatever that colour worker is, and gain the gold from picking up that worker. Now later on as you go raiding, you just put a worker down, and as part of the raid you get a worker back. You don't get two bonuses, but you're always cycling one worker out and one worker in.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite simple to start with, but then you soon realise that I want to put down workers in two spots, because no one's put a worker on the spots any of the spots I actually want to go to. They're all on spots that I don't want to go to, but I've got to put one down and I'll gain the benefit of that, and then I've got to work out of what's left what I want back.
Yeah.
So the people before, especially if your engines are kind of not in sync with each other, quite often you get left with okay, I've had to plan for picking up someone else's worker on a space that I don't care about very much. It's not too bad because the spots are fairly simple. It's like recruit someone, get provisions, get gold, that kind of stuff. There's nothing too crazy to it, but the number of times in one game that I find myself either wanting to put down two workers in spaces that there's nothing, or pick up two workers, and I always have to put one down and pick up a different one. And again, it can be, I put down a worker that's black so it's powerful for getting provisions, but then I'll pick up a worker that's white that's good for going raiding. Now it's only useful if I pick up from the spot that I want and if I want to go raiding. Otherwise that white worker in the starting spaces is not very powerful. So I've then got to put that back down. So it becomes much more of a puzzle, and I've just not seen anything like that with worker placement where you put one down and you pick one up, but then they're worth different powers in different spaces.
Multi-layered on the placement part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's where the puzzle comes in, is not just where you're placing, it's then also kind of what colour and what you're then going to pick up. And
because, again, we'll talk about Lorenzo. Kind of that number decides roughly where you're likely to go.
Yeah.
Like what strength of spots you can go to. So it's kind of similar in that respect, but it's the put one down, pick one up that really adds to that, because the number of times you're like, I want to go raiding all the way up in the nice juicy sections that have got loads of provisions to go raiding in, I need a white worker. All right, I'm taking this white worker back, I've got to take the action. I'm going to do something that is worth nothing to me at all just to get back that colour of worker back. Yeah. So really interesting. It's probably why it's made it up to the top of my Garfield list. Is because of that decision space in itself.
Yeah, you talked about that on a previous episode, and it sounded sounded interesting then, because I've not heard any kind of worker placement game do that.
No.
It seemed very, very unique. So yeah, I was like, ooh. Whereas a game I probably wasn't even remotely interested in, and now I was like, oh, actually, I should probably give this a look.
So now we're on to our Would You Rather section, and as I mentioned near the beginning, unless you edit it out,
I wouldn't do that to you.
I have a bit of a sunburn. So the question is, would you rather play a game in the sun with a sunburn, or would you rather play a game with a cold in a fridge?
Cold in the fridge.
Yeah?
That was quick.
Yeah,
That was really quick.
I don't deal with the heat very well.
No.
I get grumpy and I get sweaty and I get like.
You're gonna be shaking and
Yeah,
shivering.
no, it's
and...
cold. I'm fairly insulated. I'm all right. I deal with the cold so much better. Like, just put me on a mountain somewhere and I'll be fine. You know, snowboarding and all of that.
Yeah, but
that's the love in there. Just in
That's
maybe
a bit different
playing
to
a
a
ball
fridge,
game.
though, isn't it? Being on a mountain snowboarding than being in a fridge. You can't move.
In a fridge.
Yeah, I mean, this fridge is. I'm assuming this fridge
Yeah.
is like one at a supermarket where you could actually sit down and play.
Oh yeah, it's not your
Yeah,
fridge.
yeah.
You're not.
Because I might be able to get a game of love letter in there.
Yeah, trying to
Sure.
play a little like travel game. And
Yeah. Travel chess, anyone?
No, yeah, I'm thinking like one of those big like supermarket.
Yeah,
locker
like a
fridges.
walk-in
Yeah.
fridge. Like,
Fridge. Yeah, that's still fridge. I think.
Like surrounded by like big slabs of meat on hooks. That
Yeah,
kind
it
of.
means if
So
I
are we
get
saying-
hungry.
Are we saying fridge or are we saying freezer?
I'd say fridge.
Let's
Freezer,
say
you're gonna-
fridge.
All right.
Fridge and cold is still pretty. Because freezer.
A cold fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
A
right.
freezer, you're going to be like
Well,
tapping
you'd
out
be dead.
within 5 minutes.
exactly.
Yeah, after a couple of hours, you'd probably fall asleep.
Exactly. I don't mind playing around with the slabs of meat. It's fine.
I-
Get hungry, you can have a little portable cooker, cut a bit off.
I've got an
Bang.
answer, and
There you go.
I'm going to join you in this fridge.
You're going to try me in the fridge.
Because we've done this.
And what
We've got-
Curly's in his garage.
No. So just for the context, like during lockdown, obviously to remain safe, like we could
You were
bubble
allowed
up and we
outside.
could allowed outside, and we had to keep distance and all that kind of thing. Curly has a carport, so it's basically a garage with no doors, right? It's like a shelter. So we would play outside in this carport, and in the summer it was fine. Absolutely fine. It was quite nice.
Yeah,
Wasn't
it was
Being
nice, it was
outside,
cool.
a couple of beers or whatever, playing some games. We thought this is great. We're socialising.
Yeah.
We're getting the group back together, and that was okay until it got to about October, and then it was like, can anyone feel their fingers? Because like, it got really cold.
There was
It
a
was-
heater we would pass around to the first player
Yeah.
to
Really?
indicate the first player. There's a little portable heater. There's
Yeah,
only
so-
one.
Oh.
So we're passing it around the table.
That won't help
Yeah.
with COVID, will it?
Yeah.
Just let me lick the heater before I pass
Oh,
over
no.
to you.
We get cranky.
Do it
You
under
know, we
the
get
table.
cranky with turns. Like, come on, get on with your turn. Like, this seriously,
I want
because we're
the
really
heater.
cold. Yeah. But no, I think because we've done it, and but that was like a fridge, more like a freezer at some point. I'm going to go with that because I'm like you. In the heat, I get sweaty, I get hot. I'll be dripping all over the board. The cards will just melt in front of me, and I think having sunburn where you just can't move without going, ow. No,
Yeah.
fridge.
Fridge.
See,
Now you want to go fridge, don't you?
well,
After his sunburn.
After sunburn,
I'm
yeah.
struggling with this because I'm not good in the heat at all.
No.
Like very, very fair skinned. I burn almost instantly. But if I'm out in it, I can stay out in it. I could probably complain, but I'll probably complain if I'm sat in a fridge as well, right? But I'll complain that I'm sat in the sun for a few hours, but I won't feel that sunburn for 24 hours, right? Whereas even if I've got sunburn, I'm getting more sunburn on top of it. The likelihood is I probably won't feel it as much until later.
Yeah.
You've become accustomed to it.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
It's
what
an
it
after
is?
effect, not during,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Whereas I would deal better with being in the fridge, but I'm a grouchy fucker when I've got a cold. If you think I'm grumpy when I'm not having a good turn playing a board game, you wait and see me when I've got a cold.
But
at home.
Adrian,
really?
Adrian, you're in a fridge. There's like yogurts everywhere, and fruit and chocolate. If you put that in the fridge, like the fridge it'll be stocked up with food.
What, as
Yeah.
opposed to being able to have cold ciders out in the sun?
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, see, it sounds nice, but the sunburn doesn't, and I'll be sweating, and the can would be against my face.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I think I do have to join you guys in the fridge. I'll be honest.
Let's shut the door because we're letting the cold out.
But you have to realise I'm going to be one grouchy.
That's fine.
Bugger.
That's fine. We're used to it.
I was waiting for that. I was like, I don't know if I've set him up or not. But... And with that, we're on to our penultimate turn, where we talk about what we're looking forward to, what we've got coming up, etc., etc. The next thing we have coming up is the 24-hour board game event.
Yeah.
So,
Is
it the Friday? I think it's 2 days after this is released,
it's
isn't it?
It's literally this Friday.
So, some of us did it last year. Not all of us did it last year, but a good portion of us did it last year. Did various degrees of number of hours, like I'm sure we will this year. And really enjoyed it. Before you get to the point of the fact that it's for a good cause, and it is a bit of a challenge, and it's a bit of a chance to game and all that kind of stuff. And there's a fantastic raffle that's even bigger this year.
It looks mad.
It's crazy.
It looked crazy.
Dan's done a good job.
Last year they had it on like the school stage or whatever it was. Like I'm not quite sure what it was, but there was like a bit of a stage or whatever, and they had it sort of littered across, and it did a decent job of making that look full. And you're seeing his videos. It looks even crazier this year.
Yeah.
And there's some big stuff in there.
The publishers have been really great.
Yeah,
Donations have been awesome, and I think the sheer volume of this raffle is hopefully it's going to raise lots of money, right? That's the purpose for it.
And you can buy them remotely as well. I saw from Dan the other day. So even if you're not there, if you just want to get involved in the raffle, you can buy your tickets online and still be part of it. Yeah. So it's for Cots for Tots.
Yep.
Which is I know it's very close to Dan's heart personally as a charity, and it's a great charity that hopefully they raised a good portion of money for last year. Looks like we're set to beat it this year, hopefully.
Yeah, they're trying to get over the 20 grand raised since basically the event started 5-6 odd years ago. So they're trying to smash that 20 grand. Limit's not the we don't want to limit it,
it's
do we?
a target.
That's the word. Smash the target, and I think he's well on track. And it's really great to kind of hear. I think ticket sales have been going well for him as well.
Yeah. It's got a larger event this year, I believe.
Yeah, larger event. It's obviously a bit different in terms of the fact it's at a hotel and people can stay over if they want to.
Yeah. Although the offer's now gone, right?
Well, yeah, you can still book. You can
still book, but you don't get the...
You might not get a room because they might be fully booked, but who knows?
So, we've got all of that going on. It's from 9am till 9am because it's a 24-hour event. And most of us will be there, happy to chat, happy to play games. And from our point of view, that's all we really need to talk about, isn't it?
No.
No?
No.
What do you mean no?
There's a special thing we need to talk about, Adrian.
Is there a special thing we need to talk about?
And you should know.
Not to talk about this.
Oh, sorry, not that thing.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing.
Yeah, go on.
So the other thing is, I've said it before, I'm hosting the live stream, playing lots of games. Hopefully we've got different people kind of jumping on. So it's going to be a good, nice mix of various different games from mid-weights, lightweights. I think as the hours will go on, they'll get lighter.
I'll be lightweight.
And they're light.
Sure.
And then basically, with the final 3 hours, they're going to be the lightest games I can find.
Into madness.
Like noughts and crosses, anything that I can kind of do.
Winks.
Cluster.
Yeah.
That's definitely an end of Expo kind
definitely.
End of marathon.
But the main thing I wanted to kind of mention is that on the Saturday at 10 till midnight, we are running a live episode for Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast. So I think most of us are going to be on it. I think 7 of us, roughly. Yeah. And we're gonna play a lovely game, a nice kind-hearted game of the Resistance Avalon, which
I'm literally gonna have to filter myself so badly. Well, I can still shout at people, but I'm just gonna have to substitute. I'm
gonna
be like,
entertaining.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Straining. You can see the veins in my neck.
Lots of sugars, lots of fudges.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little nervous. Not about the game, but I just think we've not really done anything live.
No.
And even recording this episode is, I'm just looking at the clock. It's way longer than what the timer would be when you were listening to this in your cars or whatever. But just the fact that we're going to be running live and we can't kind of press pause or cut stuff out. So we've got to be very mindful of that.
So
Haven't we, Davey?
Tune in for the mayhem.
Yeah. But no.
If you like watching car crashes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be fun. It's going to be a good laugh.
It will be good fun.
I would encourage you, if anyone listens to this show, come and join us 10 o'clock till midnight.
I filter myself for work. I can filter myself.
I'm not worried, mate. It'll be fun. And we're past Watershed, thank God.
We are past Watershed, that's right.
But still, it's a charity stream, so we've got to be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, please join us. It's going to be awesome. What are you looking forward to, David?
I'm going to the Crown for a meal, which is meant to be owned by Banksy in Pilton.
Oh, okay.
It's rumoured to, don't know if it actually is, but it's been reopened and there's a lot of rumours floating around Bristol that's owned by Banksy. So there you go. That's something I'm looking forward to. Something out there, something a bit different.
Yeah.
There you go.
But you are a foodie.
I am foodie. I do like my food.
You like going out for good meals.
Hence why I then now need to do my exercise, because I like my food too much.
Yeah.
That's why I have to do the exercise so I can enjoy my food, which means I can't game as much. So it's like a weird equilibrium of food, gaming, and
game and
life.
Food.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
How about you, Adrian? We spoke about what you're looking forward to, yeah?
From the expo, I came back with essentially 3 Calyx cubes worth of Shelf of Shame.
Nice.
So between the handful I already had, I'd nearly dwindled the Shelf of Shame down to like 3 boxes, I think it was. And I've now got 3 or 3.5 Calyx cubes worth of Shelf of Shame. So I am working my way through that, and sort of other people I play with are knowledgeable in the idea that every time they come over, they're going to have to learn a new game just so I can get it.
Yeah.
We'll play whatever else they want, but as long as we play one that we haven't played before, so I can sort of get it through and see. So I think there's a couple of games on there that are kind of intriguing to me at the moment. One of which I didn't actually get. The expo arrived afterwards, which was Isle of Trains. So a little sort of engine building, not route management, but you're sort of taking certain spaces up with your cards and getting your passengers on board and stuff like that. Looks really interesting. Looks like a nice light to mid-weight game. So that arrived, but also I managed to nab a second-hand copy of the 51st State Ultimate Collection. Mm-hmm. So several years ago, I was asking around, do people think 51st State is better or Imperial Settlers are better? They're both by Ignacy, however you pronounce his surname. But so yeah, they're both by Portal Games by Ignacy, and they have a similar idea, which is that there's kind of 3 levels of cards that you can play out, and then you play them left to right, and you build an engine and some other bits and pieces kind of in it to make an engine sort of, it's a tableau builder that builds you an engine to getting more points. And originally when I asked, everyone said, well, Imperial Settlers has its own, each empire has its own deck. The graphics were quite cutesy. They reminded me of like cartoony RTS style graphics. Yeah. But it's a bit of a meaner game. And I thought, well, I don't have that many mean games in there. The idea of having a nation all to its own, where you have to kind of learn the nation, seemed great. But when I played it, I realised that I was never going to get around to learning all these nations enough. So as much as I enjoyed the gameplay, I didn't really enjoy having these separate nations that all have their own play style and all do different things. So I sold that off, and I've bought 51st State instead, which is a lot less mean. People can find it much harder to muck up your tableau that you're building, your engine that you're building, and it's a shared pool of cards to play with instead. Yeah. And with that, our final turn is wrapping up. Thanks everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe and review on your podcast player of choice. If you know someone who you think might enjoy this podcast, please let them know so they can have their turn of listening too. And that was the last episode in my run where I've been first player. I'm handing over to Becky, who will take first player for the next few episodes. If you want to get in contact with the show, we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and Board Game Geek, or via email, all of which the details are in the show notes. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with another episode, so until then, whose turn is it anyway?